Hi everyone. This is the final part 2, examination two's notes and information. We'll be discussing stress, violence, and talk a little bit about environment. Um, the first area we'll discuss has to do with the general adaptation syndrome um, in terms of normal stress responses, which can endanger our health and can result in physical exhaustion. So um, it's important to make sure, with regards to the fight versus flight response, that you handle stress in a healthy manner as opposed to engaging in unhealthy behaviors, um, because that can lead to sickness and a breakdown of the body and of the mind in the long run and in the short term. So, handling stress is definitely very important as it occurs on a daily basis, um, and something that the population that we're dealing with, typically the children in our classrooms, um, they have a lot of stress in their homes, dealing with relationships for the first time, and making sure that they have good coping skills, that they're eating right and they're exercising. So all of these things combined can help them to be able to manage their stress and then teach them as they get older to manage their stress, because the accumulation of this can definitely impact them tremendously as they get older. Um, and It can cause a number of different problems as they get older. Eating disorders being one of them, because they in turn feel like they have a lack of control. Um, and eating disorders typically are an issue of control. So we want to make sure that we try and prevent this type of thing from happening. And a lot of times, other things can result from the same type of issue with control. Gambling can result from uh, feeling as if someone is stressed. And so this is one of the negative ways of dealing with stress. Um, Gaming, in terms of addiction, can happen. Television addiction. Um, People can be addicted to exercise. So we just have to make sure that we're handling our stress in a healthy way, and not going to extremes when it comes to dealing with things that arise and again accumulate over time. And there can certainly be chemical imbalances, but typically it's as a result of nutritional deficiencies, a lack of coping skills, managing your stress properly, um, and the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Some of them you can control and some of them you cannot. Obviously, your family members, if you're surrounded by parents that smoke, um, there's chaos in the house. Um, there's economic um, impacts on your life that don't allow you to have basic needs met. Um, and So the people that you are surrounding yourself with definitely will impact all of these things that we're discussing, from health to stress management to your coping skills, how you view relationships, especially from an early age. Um, so it's important to keep this in mind, as everybody has to deal with a number of different things, and everyone deals with things differently. So it's important that we all be sensitive to this type of diversity in the classrooms, and help people to better understand themselves and to be more aware of their surroundings. So one of the things we want to be cautious of is that when unhealthy behaviors or decisions that are being made with regards to, for example, addictions, is that it interferes with healthy behavior. So it's just something that you have to protect yourself against. And a lot of times it's just something that we are not going to be privy to, but we're just trying to make sure that we pay attention as best we can, and help them, to them being our students, to better understand themselves, and if it's to a level where it's disruptive to the classroom, and there can be an intervention of some sort, either with the families or a recommendation to a health professional, then that's always recommended. We want to make sure that we're teaching young people and adolescents to make good choices, despite what they might be seeing growing up with friends, with different things on television or in the movies, or what they hear with music, what they see in their homes, but especially with their friendships, things that they have control over. Any illegal activity is definitely grounds for ending a friendship. So just want to make sure that this is something that is discussed, among other things that often come to the forefront during a child's upbringing, as we have mentioned previously, is the high rate of divorce, especially with teen parents. And the most common effect on children is that they become more fearful. They don't necessarily become more antisocial or sick, or more or less achievement oriented, but they do become more fearful when parents divorce, because it deals with trust and how they view the world around them. It's not the same type of place that they thought it was, and there's an adjustment period, and some are impacted more than others. We're going to continue by discussing violence and how to handle certain situations that might arise. There's obviously protocol with schools as far as any type of intruder that has come into the school with a firearm or a weapon, whether it's a student or somebody affiliated or not affiliated directly or indirectly with the school. And that has definitely changed over the last 20 years. And so we'll talk about this a little bit. But as far as relationships go, we talked a little bit earlier about dating, and if that process by which you're meeting people leads to an unfortunate situation known as stalking, you definitely want to, as we mentioned before, ask friends and family to monitor the behavior. And a lot of times in different cities, what we're dealing with is gang members, which can be a very scary thing. And besides, a lot of times having the pressure of being either in a family or having friends that are gang members, it being a prestige issue in terms of status. But if you're being stalked by a gang member, it can be very scary to confront this kind of situation, because it can turn deadly and go wrong very quickly. But it is recommended that the authorities are alerted to any type of illegal activity or stalking, um, to make sure that you do everything in your power to be assertive and make sure your well-being is taken care of. So, uh, some other things that can happen um, with regards to violence is on dates. When kids are going on dates, um, you have to be very careful of date rape drugs, especially with women. There is a higher incidence of certain drugs that can be slipped into drinks or even in food. Um, and so you never want to leave a drink unattended. If you go to the bathroom, for example, even if it's with people that you think that you know, a lot of times, most of the times, a lot of these rapes and date rapes that occur are with people that the person knows. So you just have to be very cautious of this type of thing. And with regards to other types of violence, for example, carjackings, um, you have to be aware of your surroundings. With most of the things that we talk about with regards to violence, when you're going from your classroom, especially at night, to your car, or you're in a parking lot, or you're at a mall, you're shopping, um, you want to be very cautious of your surroundings, and even keeping something as simple as mace in your purse, or carrying it with you if you don't have a purse. Both males and females, for $5 can often be a great deterrent to somebody who suddenly attacks you in a violent manner, trying to rob you or carjack you, that type of thing. And a lot of paying attention to your surroundings starts when children are very young, and they're taught to trust their feelings about situations that they might think are dangerous. And for those that might not have been taught this, they might question a situation that somebody else might make a better decision because they do a better job of trusting themselves. Teachers are mandatory reporters of suspected child abuse. So if this is something that happens, it's important that this is reported. For example, with domestic violence, if that's something that is suspected in any way, or with children, obviously any kind of abuse. But a lot of times there are signs, but it's made out to be either because of enabling or codependency, or the honeymoon phase, to make it seem like that it's not really an issue, but the pattern continues, and so we want to make sure that we're reporting things appropriately and as mandatory reporters, and making sure that we have the best interests of the children at heart. Talking a little bit more about gangs, most street gangs are defined within certain territories in terms of their operation, and it is something that they feel helps them feel strong, and they don't have families a lot of times, and this is who they claim are their family. So there's initiations and a lot of drugs and violence involved with gangs, and it's not necessarily to get a sense of freedom from their parents. It's more of a familial um, um, situation where they feel as if the gang has their backs. A lot of times it's about money and drugs, because financially that's an issue and their families aren't able to care for them, but the gangs often are because of the activities that they're involved in and how they can provide things that they don't feel their families can. And a lot of people at certain points want to get out of the gangs once they get a little bit older, and usually one of the ways that they can do that is to survive a serve beating or a jump out, which is very scary, and many people don't, unfortunately. Um, Another related, um, indirectly, I guess, in terms of violence type of thing that happens oftentimes, not only with gangs, but just in general, a lot of times because people see this type of behavior at home, um, in terms of bullying, but it's not just a physical act, it is an emotional act. There doesn't have to be any physical activity going on. It can be the use of words, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So a physical attack or a threat, just generally speaking, is known as an assault. It can be simply a push. So I want to just make sure that we're keeping our hands to ourselves. Some districts have a no touching rule. And we just want to make sure that the extremes that result oftentimes because of the buildup over time, starting with our decisions and what we're taught as young kids, don't lead us to making really sad choices. For example, suicide, which can really be devastating and have a long-lasting effect not only on the families and friends, but oftentimes communities, and go much further and much deeper than simply that person taking their own life. Just a couple of things with regards to environmental, with regards to this exam. With recent advances in storm warning systems, flash flood deaths in the United States are common. It is something that still happens despite methods to prevent these types of things, unfortunately. A tornado watch does not mean that a tornado has been sighted. It just means that there's a possibility, based on certain factors, that it could lead to a tornado warning. And a misnomer is it is safe to talk on a corded telephone during an electrical storm. It's not safe to do that. A couple other things with regards to environmental that I wanted to mention. If you cannot escape being in an open tornado, in the open during a tornado, you should lie in a ditch or some other low area. Can definitely save your life. If you're in an area where there's a wildfire, a different type of environmental issue that we might be dealing with, you want to take down flammable drapes and curtains